The sandstorm had finally stopped. John wiped the dust from his visor and looked around the alien wasteland. The planet's sky was tinted violet, its sun low and bleeding orange across the horizon. His ship had crash-landed hours ago, and now only silence surrounded him, except for the distant hum of alien insects that didn't sound friendly. His oxygen gauge blinked red. "Great," he muttered. "Another few hours and I'll be done." He started walking toward the remains of what looked like an old alien settlement. Broken stone arches, rusted metal domes, and strange blue vines crawling over everything. The wind howled again, carrying an echo that almost sounded like a voice. At first he thought it was the wind. But then it came again, weak, trembling, definitely a voice. "Please, don't go." John froze. His pulse quickened. He reached for his plasma pistol and turned slowly. From behind a broken pillar, a figure crawled into view. A thin alien woman, her silver-gray skin bruised and her clothes torn. Her eyes glowed faintly in the fading light, large and filled with fear. "Stay back," John warned, his weapon raised. The woman stopped, raising both hands. I'm not a threat," she said in broken English. Her voice was hoarse, desperate. "Please, human, take me with you." He stared, uncertain. "Who are you?" She lowered her gaze. "No one. A servant, once, now nothing." John frowned. "You speak my language?" "Learned from the old records," she whispered. "I saw your ship fall from the sky. You are alone?" He hesitated. "Yes, but I don't need company." Her expression changed, half fear, half pleading. She dropped to her knees. "Please, take me as your servant. I can cook, clean, guide you through the ruins. I can help you survive." John looked at her, skin pale under the dying light, hair tangled like silver threads. She was shaking, her voice trembling with every word. He sighed. "Why would you want that? To serve me?" Tears glimmered in her alien eyes. "Because no one else will take me." The words hit something inside him. He lowered the weapon slightly. "What happened to you?" he asked quietly. She looked away. "My tribe cast me out. They said I was cursed. I refused their command to serve the males. They said I was useless. When I begged for food, they beat me. When I begged for a place to sleep, they said I could die with the wind." John clenched his jaw. He had seen cruelty before in human wars and broken colonies, but there was something about her voice, about how empty it sounded, that made his chest tighten. She crawled closer, keeping her head low. "Please, human, let me follow you. I will obey. I will not speak unless you ask. Just don't leave me here." He looked around, the dark sky now flashing with distant lightning. In the far distance, something howled, something big. He knew he couldn't stay out here long. "Fine," he said. "But if you try anything—" "I won't," she whispered, almost too fast. "I promise," he helped her stand. Her legs were weak, her body trembling from hunger. Up close, he could see faint marks on her wrists. Old chains, scars healed long ago. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "They called me Karen." "Karen?" he repeated, surprised. She blinked, confused by his tone. "Yes, is that bad?" He almost laughed. "No, just familiar." They walked together toward the broken dome ahead. Inside, the air was still, warmer. A faint blue light glowed from crystal shards embedded in the walls. She moved carefully, keeping her distance, watching him like someone afraid to breathe too loud. He unpacked his survival kit, started a small thermal flame, and sat down. She stayed by the wall, hugging her knees. "You can sit," he said. She shook her head. "Servants do not sit beside their masters." He frowned. "I'm not your master." She looked up, eyes wet. "Then what am I?" He paused. "A survivor. Like me." Something in her expression softened, as if she had never heard those words before. She looked at the fire with quiet wonder. "Warm," she whispered. "It feels kind." He handed her a ration bar. She took it carefully, as if afraid it might vanish. "Thank you," she said softly, and ate slowly, savoring every bite. For a long time, they sat in silence, the wind howling outside, the little blue fire flickering between them. Finally, John spoke. "You said your people called you cursed. Why?" She looked into the fire. "Because I dreamed of stars. I wanted to see other worlds. My kind says a female's place is to serve, but I wanted more." Her voice cracked. "So they made sure I had nothing." John stared at her, this fragile, scarred being who still had hope buried beneath her pain. He didn't know why, but he said quietly, You're not nothing. Her eyes widened slightly. She whispered, Then why do you help me? He shrugged. Because someone once helped me when I was broken. Maybe it's time I return the favor. Outside, thunder rumbled again. The storm was coming back, louder, angrier. Karen pulled her thin cloak tighter around her. The night brings hunters, she said. We must hide. He nodded, checking his weapon. Then we'll hide together. For the first time, a small, trembling smile touched her lips. Together? She repeated softly, as if testing the word for the first time. As the storm roared outside, they sat close to the fire, two lost souls, one human, one alien, drawn together not by command or power, but by the desperate need to be seen, to be safe, and maybe to belong. And in that fragile moment of warmth and silence, neither knew that their meeting would change the fate of two worlds forever. The storm raged all night. Lightning flashed through cracks in the dome, turning the inside walls blue and white again and again. John didn't sleep. He kept the plasma pistol close, his eyes half open. Across the small fire, Karen sat curled up, her arms wrapped around her knees. She didn't speak, didn't move, just stared into the flames as if afraid they would vanish. When morning came, the storm had passed. Only silence remained, heavy and endless. John stood and checked his equipment. We'll move out soon, he said. I need to find the comm beacon from my ship. It's the only way to call for help. Karen nodded, her voice soft. It lies beyond the ridge, but that place is forbidden. Forbidden? He asked. Why? She lowered her head. Because that is where the hunters sleep. John frowned. Hunters? She didn't answer. Instead, she rose slowly, her bare feet quiet on the dusty ground. As she moved toward the edge of the dome, her torn cloak shifted, and he saw the marks. Thin, silvery scars ran across her back, long and cruel. Some were old, faded with time. Others looked newer, as if she had been hurt not long ago. He stepped forward. Who did that to you? She froze, her shoulders trembling. Please, don't ask. I am asking, he said firmly. Her voice broke. My own people. John's hand tightened around the pistol, not in anger toward her, but in shock. Why? Karen turned slightly, her eyes distant. Because I refused. Refused what? Her gaze fell to the floor. To be owned. For a moment, John said nothing. He had seen slavery in human wars, cruelty dressed as order, but hearing it in her calm, broken voice was different. Karen walked toward the broken window and looked out at the empty desert. On my world, she said slowly, females are raised to serve. They are trained from birth to obey. A woman without a master is a danger. They say her thoughts spread like poison. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling. When I was young, I dreamed of stars. I wanted to learn the language of the old humans from the crashed ships. I wanted to see the sky beyond our world. Her voice softened. They called me mad. They said dreams are for males, not servants. John stared at her, speechless. One day, she continued, a male soldier tried to claim me. I refused. I struck him. So they chained me to the learning poles for 7 nights. When I was freed, no one spoke to me again. John swallowed hard. And you still survived. Karen gave a bitter smile. Survival is not living. It is waiting for death with open eyes. For a long moment, only the wind whispered between them. Then John said quietly, You're not waiting anymore. You're fighting. She looked at him, puzzled. Fighting? Yeah, you didn't die out there. You walked toward a stranger's fire instead. That's fighting. Her eyes shimmered in the morning light. You speak as if I have strength. You do, he said simply. More than most humans I know. For the first time, she smiled, a small, shy thing that looked almost out of place on her tired face. Humans speak strangely, she whispered. Your words? Heal, John shrugged. Sometimes. He looked toward the horizon. Come on. We move before the sun gets hotter. They walked together through the ruined valley, the sand crunching beneath their boots. The air shimmered with heat. Strange bone-like plants rose from the ground, bending toward the light. Karen guided him through a narrow path between rocks. This way, she said, but keep your voice low. The hunters sleep below. He didn't ask what hunters meant anymore. He could hear it, low growls echoing from the caves beneath them. Something alive, something big. As they moved deeper, the ruins changed. Old human metal, rusted panels, broken beacons lay half buried in the sand. Karen stopped and touched a piece gently as if greeting a ghost. "This is your kind's ship," she said softly. "Many years ago others came. My ancestors learned your words from their fallen machines." John crouched beside her, brushing off the dust. The symbol was still faintly visible. United Earth Command. He looked at her. "So humans were here before?" She nodded. "Long ago. But they left after the war. We were told humans were monsters who burned the sky." He laughed under his breath. "Monsters? That's what they said?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. They were wrong. A strange calm filled the air between them. John could feel it, the start of something fragile and real, something beyond fear. But before he could answer, a sharp sound echoed through the canyon. A distant screech, then another. Karen's face turned pale. The hunters. They woke. John raised his pistol. "Go, run!" They ran between the rocks, the sound of claws scraping stone behind them. Something dark and fast moved through the shadows. Karen stumbled and he grabbed her arm, pulling her up. "Keep moving!" They reached a narrow cave just as a huge shadow lunged from behind. A beast with bone-white skin and teeth like glass. John fired, the plasma shot lighting up the darkness. The creature roared and fell back, smoke rising from its chest. They both collapsed inside the cave, breathing hard. Karen trembled, clutching her cloak. "You saved me." John reloaded his weapon. "Guess we're even now." She looked at him with wide, glowing eyes. "No, you don't understand. No one has ever done that for me before." He glanced at her, his voice quiet. "Then get used to it." Outside, the desert howled again and the shadows moved, but inside the cave, for the first time, Karen felt something she hadn't in years. Safety. And maybe, just maybe, hope. The cave was cold and damp, the air heavy with the smell of burnt plasma and alien blood. John sat against the wall, breathing hard. His hand trembled slightly as he checked the power cell of his weapon. 3 shots left. That was all. Karen sat nearby, her knees pulled close to her chest. The glow from the dying plasma torch painted her silver skin in soft blue light. Her eyes, wide, luminous, watched him with quiet fear and something else. "You should rest," John said finally. She shook her head. "You first." "You are wounded," he looked down. The edge of his sleeve was scorched, and a thin line of blood marked his arm where the beast's claws had grazed him. It wasn't deep, but it burned. "It's nothing," he said. Karen crawled closer, moving carefully as if afraid he'd push her away. "Please let me help." He hesitated, then nodded. She tore a strip from her cloak and dipped it in water from a small rock basin. When she pressed it gently against his wound, her hands trembled slightly. Her touch was cold, careful, like someone who hadn't touched another being in a very long time. "You're good at this," John muttered. "I was made to be," she said softly. He looked at her. "You mean trained to serve?" She nodded, her gaze fixed on his arm. "Every girl learns. Obedience, silence, care. We were told that service is the only way to earn mercy." "And do you believe that?" She paused, her eyes meeting his. "I don't know what else to believe." He sighed. "Maybe you should start believing in yourself." Karen tilted her head, confused. "How does one believe in self?" "By deciding you're worth something," he said quietly. "Even when others don't." She didn't answer, but her hands froze. Her breathing quickened. Then she whispered, "If I am worth something, then let me prove it. Let me serve you. Not as a slave, but as a way to live," John frowned. "Karen, I don't need a servant." Her eyes shone with desperation. "Then let me call it a bargain. You need me to guide you to the beacon. I need you to survive. Let me help you, and in return, let me stay." He wanted to argue, but he saw the truth in her trembling face. Alone, she wouldn't last a day. And maybe, just maybe, he didn't want to be alone either. "Fine," he said at last. "It's a deal. You help me reach the beacon, and after that, we figure things out." Karen smiled, a small, fragile smile that made the dark cave seem a little less empty. "Then I am yours, until the stars take us apart." John tried to hide his reaction, but her words hit deeper than he expected. He stood, turning away. "Let's move before the next storm hits." They climbed out of the cave as the sun rose, painting the desert in shades of copper and red. The world looked endless. Broken towers, buried ships, skeletal remains of something that might have once been a city. Karen walked a few steps ahead, barefoot and silent. She moved like she belonged to this place, knowing every crack and shadow. Every now and then she'd glance back to make sure he was still behind her. "Your people really lived here?" John asked. "Yes," she said. "Long ago before the sky burned? What happened?" "The sky fire came. Some say humans brought it. Others say it was our punishment for pride." He chuckled bitterly. "Yeah, sounds like something humans would do." Karen looked at him curiously. "You blame your kind?" He shrugged. "We destroy what we don't understand. It's kind of our talent," she smiled sadly. "Then maybe we are not so different." By midday they reached the ridge, a jagged wall of black rock stretching across the desert. Karen pointed toward a cluster of spires in the distance. "There, the signal tower. The beacon lies beneath," John squinted. "That's miles away. We can reach by nightfall. If the heat doesn't kill us." He nodded and checked his supplies. 1 water pack left, half a ration bar. "We'll make it." They walked in silence for hours. The wind cut across their faces, carrying dust and faint whispers that almost sounded like voices. When they finally stopped to rest under a fallen arch, John noticed Karen shaking. Sweat glistened on her forehead. He handed her the water. "Drink." She shook her head. "You need it more." He forced it into her hands. "That's an order." She blinked, surprised, then drank carefully. When she was done, she whispered, "This is the first order I did not hate." John smiled faintly. "You're a strange one." "And you are kind," she said softly. "That is dangerous." Before he could ask what she meant, the ground trembled beneath them. Karen's head snapped up. "Something comes." A low rumble echoed from the horizon, dust rising like a living wave. Dozens of shapes moved fast, metal and claws shining armor. John cursed. "Raiders." Karen's face went pale. "Not raiders. My people." He raised his weapon. "Then we run." "No," she said, standing tall despite her fear. "If we run, they will hunt you too. They will call you defiler for touching me." John's grip tightened. "Then what do you suggest?" Her voice shook, but her eyes hardened. "Let me speak to them. They know my face, maybe. I can buy you time." "Buy me time?" he repeated. "How?" She met his gaze, tears glimmering. "By offering myself again." He stepped forward. "No, you're not doing that." "It is the only way," she said. "This is my world. My punishment. You don't understand their law." He looked at her. This broken, brave, desperate alien who still thought her life had to be traded for peace. "Karen," he said firmly. "No one owns you anymore. Not them, not me." For a second she couldn't breathe. Then she whispered, "Then why does it feel like I finally belong?" The rumbling grew louder. Shadows rose in the dust, her people armored and armed. John lifted his weapon and stepped beside her. "If they want you," he said, "they'll have to go through me first." Karen turned to him, tears falling freely now. "Then we fight together?" He nodded. Together. The wind howled, carrying the first scream of the approaching hunters. And as the two stood side by side, human and alien, servant and savior, the desert itself seemed to hold its breath. The bargain had been made. But what it would cost, neither of them yet knew. The wind turned sharp, carrying the metallic taste of war. The horizon shimmered with dust, and from it emerged the shapes of Karen's people. Tall, armored figures with pale blue skin and glowing crimson eyes. Their weapons hummed with energy, forming a half-circle around John and Karen. Karen's hands trembled. "They came faster than I thought," she whispered. John stood beside her, his plasma pistol raised. "You said they'd talk first." "They won't," she said. "Not to you. They think humans are filth." A commanding voice echoed across the dunes. "Karen of the Fallen House!" She stiffened. The tone was familiar, one she hadn't heard in years, both hated and missed. "It can't be," she murmured. A figure stepped forward. His armor gleamed like obsidian glass. His face was stern, but his eyes flickered with pain. "You shame your blood again," he said. "And this time you bring a human?" John looked between them. "Who's that?" Karen's voice broke. "My brother." The raiders halted. The silence was heavy like the pause before lightning strikes. "Brother," Karen said softly. "You survived." Her brother's jaw clenched. "And you should not have. You were cast out by our mother's law. You have no name, no right to speak." She took a step forward. "I have a voice still, Tereth, and I will use it." "Silence," he roared. His weapon lifted. You dare stand beside a human, the very kind who burned our sky and poisoned our blood? John took a cautious breath. Look, I don't know what your history is, but she hasn't done anything wrong. Tareth's glare turned toward him. You speak as if her sin is small. You do not know who she truly is. Karen's voice trembled. Don't, Tareth, he ignored her. She is no servant. No exile by birth. She is the daughter of the High Matron herself. The one who led our kind into war against your people a century ago. John froze. Wait, your mother started the war? Karen lowered her head. Yes. And when I refused to follow her path to enslave the wounded humans, we fought. She called me traitor. Said I was tainted by mercy. Tareth's voice cracked. You betrayed your bloodline. Karen looked up, her eyes wet but fierce. I saved lives, Tareth. Human lives. I refused to kill children. You call that betrayal? I call it being alive. Her words echoed across the valley, carried by the wind. The alien soldiers shifted uneasily, glancing at one another. Some lowered their weapons. Others whispered. Tareth's anger faltered. For a moment, his face softened. You were always stubborn, he said quietly. Always chasing stars instead of obeying. Karen stepped closer. You could have left too. You could have walked away with me. His eyes burned. And let our house die? No. Someone had to protect what was left. John finally spoke. Protect? By hunting your own sister? Tareth turned to him, his voice low. You don't understand, human. She carries the blood of the matron. If she bonds with you, it will stain our bloodline forever. John frowned. Bond? What does that mean? Karen looked away, her cheeks flushing faintly. Among my kind, when a female swears loyalty with her heart, it becomes binding. Life to life, John blinked. You mean like marriage? Tareth snarled. Like corruption. The tension cracked like thunder. Without warning, one of the soldiers fired. The plasma bolt missed John by inches, striking the rock behind him. Instinctively, John fired back, dropping the shooter. Chaos erupted. Energy beams sliced the air. Sand exploded. Karen screamed, pulling John behind a ridge as the raiders advanced. Tareth, stop! She cried. Please! Don't make me fight you! But her brother didn't stop. He charged, blade glowing blue. John raised his weapon, but Karen moved faster. She stepped between them, her hand outstretched. The blade struck her arm, burning flesh but missing her heart. Tareth froze, horrified. Karen, she fell to her knees, clutching the wound. If you kill him, she gasped, then you will kill me too. Is that what you want? He dropped the weapon, trembling. The other soldiers hesitated, unsure. John rushed to her side, pressing his jacket against the wound. You're insane, he whispered. You didn't have to do that. Her breathing was shallow, but her voice was steady. You said no one owns me. That means I choose whom I protect. Tareth knelt beside them, his expression breaking apart. You would bleed for him? For a human? Karen smiled weakly. Not for a human. For someone who saw me. The silence stretched. The storm clouds gathered again above them. Finally, Tareth stood, his voice heavy. Take her and go, before the others changed their minds. John stared. You're letting us go? She is still my sister, Tareth said quietly. And I cannot kill her twice. They left as the first drops of rain fell, cold and silver against the red sand. Karen leaned against John, her body weak but her eyes clear. Why did he let us go? John asked. Because he remembers, she said softly. Before the war? Before the hatred? And what about you? Karen looked at the storm, then at him. I remember too. And I will not let the past decide who I become. As lightning split the sky, John realized something profound. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about redemption, and somewhere beyond the storm a new beginning waited if they could reach it alive. The rain had stopped, but the air still smelled of lightning and ash. John and Karen walked through the canyon in silence. Her arm was wrapped in a strip of his jacket, blood darkening the fabric. Each step seemed to cost her more strength, yet she refused to slow down. We should rest, John said. She shook her head. Your beacon is near. We can't stop now. He looked ahead. The cliffs curved into a valley where metal spires jutted from the ground, half-buried relics of old human technology. The beacon must have crashed there decades ago. You sure this is the right place? He asked. Karen nodded weakly. I remember the stories. The humans built their signal towers in the bones of the world. Her voice was fading. He caught her before she fell. "Hey," he whispered. "Stay with me." Her eyelids fluttered. "If I sleep, I may not wake." "Then you're not sleeping," he said firmly. He lifted her into his arms and carried her toward the spires. The wind howled through the ruins like 1,000 whispering ghosts. Inside the wreckage, broken consoles still hummed faintly. A single terminal glowed under the dust. John set Karen down gently and brushed off the screen. "Earth Command Beacon, Unit 47B, it read. He exhaled in relief. Finally. But as the screen came alive, Karen's hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. "Wait," he frowned.
"What now?"
She pointed to an inscription carved into the wall. Lines of her native script, faded but readable. "Your signal, it doesn't just call your people. It awakens the Watchers." John blinked. "Watchers?" She nodded, her voice trembling. "Machines left from the old war. My people use them to track your fleets. If you send your call, they will come. They will destroy everything left alive." John stared at the console. His heart pounded. The screen blinked, waiting for a single command. Activate distress beacon, his only chance to get home. Or her only chance to live. He stepped back, mind racing. "If I don't call for help, we both die here. If I do, your world burns again." "That's the choice." Karen's lips curved into a sad smile. "Yes, the same choice my mother once made. And it destroyed us." He clenched his fists. "There has to be another way." "There isn't," she said softly. "But maybe this time, mercy can win." She leaned back against the metal wall, her breathing shallow. "You said humans believe in freedom. Maybe freedom means choosing who you save." John looked at her. This fragile being who had suffered, who had bled for him, who still found hope in ruins. He turned to the console again. The blue light blinked like a heartbeat. "John," she whispered, "if you call them, they will come for you. You can go home." He looked over his shoulder.
"And leave you here?"
Karen smiled faintly. "You already gave me more than anyone ever did. A name, a reason, that is enough." "Not for me," he said quietly. He tore open a panel under the console, pulling out wires and a broken interface core. "Maybe I can reroute the signal, send a partial transmission. Enough for them to track me, not the world." Karen's voice was weak but steady. "You think like a soldier. I was one," he admitted. "Before everything fell apart. What happened?" He hesitated. "I stopped following orders. I got tired of fighting wars that only made graves." She gave a small, tired laugh. "Then we are the same." He looked at her again. "Yeah, maybe we are." Minutes passed as he worked, connecting circuits and bypassing burned chips. Sparks flashed, but finally the console flickered to life. A distorted voice echoed faintly. "Earth Command. Beacon, responding." John's heart leapt. "It's working." But before he could celebrate, Karen gasped and grabbed her chest. The wound had reopened, blood seeping through the bandage. He rushed to her side. "Stay with me. Just a little longer." Her eyes glimmered like moonlight. "You have to finish. Before the storm returns." He pressed the cloth tighter. "Forget the beacon. We'll find another way." She shook her head weakly. "No, you must go home. Your people need to know. Tell them we were not all monsters." He swallowed hard. "And what about you?" She smiled through tears. "I was born to serve. But maybe my last act will serve peace instead." John looked at the blinking console, the way home glowing before him. Then at her, trembling, fading, yet still smiling. His hand hovered over the button, then he pulled it away. Karen blinked. Why didn't you press it?" He looked at her, voice firm. "Because home isn't worth it if I have to burn yours to get there." Tears welled in her eyes. "You would give that up? For me?" "For what's right," he said softly. "For once." The console beeped once, then died as he ripped the power core out. The light faded, leaving only the quiet hum of the wind. Karen stared at him in disbelief, then let out a shaky breath. You chose life," he smiled faintly. "No, I chose you." Outside, thunder rolled again, but this time it felt different, not a threat, but a heartbeat. Karen closed her eyes, resting her head against his shoulder. "Then maybe there is hope for both our kinds." He held her close, his voice low. "We'll find another way. I promise." As the storm gathered above them, lightning flashed across the broken sky, reflecting in her tears and in his eyes filled with quiet defiance. The human had made his choice, and the universe would remember it. The storm had turned black. Thunder cracked like gunfire across the horizon, and the air shimmered with electric dust. John crouched beside Karen, shielding her with his jacket as wind whipped through the ruins. He thought the beacon was dead, but it wasn't. A deep hum rolled through the ground, low and mechanical, like the breath of something waking after centuries of sleep. The broken tower around them began to vibrate, its metal plates glowing faintly with blue light. Karen opened her eyes weakly. "Jana, what did you do?" "I thought I cut the power," he said. But something else, something old, still heard the signal. Above them, the clouds split apart. A brilliant white beam shot down through the storm, illuminating the desert floor. A massive ship descended, its surface silver and sharp with markings John recognized instantly. United Earth Command. His chest tightened. "They came..." Karen flinched, her voice trembling. Then it begins again. The Earthship hovered, engines screaming as it cleared the dust. A voice echoed from loudspeakers, stern, commanding. "This is Commander Hayes of the Aegis. Identify yourself." "Human life signs detected." John stood, waving one arm. "This is Sergeant John Kellen, Earth Expeditionary Corps." "I need evac, 2 survivors." There was a long pause. Then the voice replied, colder. "Confirm 2 survivors?" "The second is non-human." He hesitated. "Yes, hold position. Do not engage. Extraction team inbound." Karen's eyes filled with dread. "They won't take me with you." He looked at her. "They will," she shook her head. "Your kind believes we are killers. They will end me before they even ask your name." John gritted his teeth. "Then they'll have to go through me first." Moments later, 3 armored figures dropped from the ship. Earth soldiers, weapons drawn, visors reflecting the stormlight. They moved in formation, surrounding the ruins. "Sergeant Kellen?" one asked. "Yeah." The soldier's gaze moved past him to Karen, who was struggling to sit up. "Is that the alien?" "She's not a threat," John said quickly. "She saved my life." The soldier raised his rifle. "Our orders are to secure any alien contact." "Stand aside." John stepped between them. "She's under my protection. Step aside, Sergeant." He didn't move. Not happening. The soldier's visor flickered as he received a transmission. "Sir, command confirms this world is quarantined. Any alien survivor must be terminated to prevent contamination." John's voice hardened. "You call mercy contamination now?" The soldier hesitated. "Don't make this hard," Karen weakly whispered. "John, please let them do what they must. I don't want them to hurt you." He turned to her, eyes fierce. "You don't get it, do you? I won't lose another innocent because of orders." Then he looked back at the soldiers. "If you shoot her, you shoot me too." The storm howled, lightning tearing across the sky. The lead soldier lowered his rifle slightly. "Sergeant, think about what you're doing." "I am," John said. "I'm choosing what's right." "She's not the enemy," the soldier's voice dropped. "Then you're a traitor." The first shot cracked through the air. John fired back instantly, his plasma bolt slamming into the sand near their feet. Sparks exploded and the ruins erupted in chaos. Karen crawled behind a fallen pillar, shouting, "Stop! Please!" But neither side listened. The Earth soldiers moved fast, too fast. John dodged behind cover, returning fire. One beam grazed his shoulder, burning through his armor. Pain shot through his body, but he didn't stop. Then above the noise, another sound echoed, a sharp, alien roar. Karen's eyes widened. The hunters. Out of the storm came monstrous shapes, creatures drawn by the beacon signal. Bone-white skin, multiple eyes, mouths like open knives. They lunged at everything that moved. The soldiers turned their guns on the new threat. "Contact!
Hostiles incoming!"
The battlefield erupted, human plasma and alien lightning clashing under the storm. John fired until his weapon overheated, then grabbed Karen's hand. "We need to move." She hesitated. "No, the tower's core. If I overload it, it can destroy the hunters." "That'll kill you too." She smiled faintly. "Then maybe your people will see. Not all monsters are born human." Before he could stop her, she tore free and sprinted toward the tower. Lightning reflected off her silver skin as she pressed her palm to the glowing core. "Karen!" he shouted, her voice echoed through the storm. "Tell them." We tried to be better. The light consumed everything. The explosion ripped across the valley, blue fire swallowing the hunters, the soldiers, and the tower itself. The shockwave threw John to the ground. When the dust settled, only silence remained. The Aegis ship hovered above, its engines flickering. A voice broke through static. "Sergeant Kellen, report." John opened his eyes, staring at the crater where Karen had stood. Only ashes shimmered in the stormlight. He picked up her broken pendant, the one she always wore, and closed his hand around it. His voice trembled. "She's gone. She saved us all." There was a long silence. Then Commander Hayes replied, almost whispering, "Understood. Bring what remains." John looked up at the sky, his heart heavy. "What remains," he murmured, "is hope." As the ship's beam lifted him from the ground, he whispered into the wind, "You weren't a monster, Karen. You were the best of us." And as the storm faded, the first rays of sunlight broke through, lighting the ashes of two worlds finally at peace. The shuttle touched down on the landing pad of Earth Command HQ, its hull still scarred from the storm. John stepped out slowly, boots hitting solid ground for the first time in months. The air of Earth felt heavier, too clean, too familiar, and somehow colder than the alien winds he had left behind. Around him, soldiers saluted. Drones hovered overhead, scanning for radiation and pathogens. The steel-gray sky reflected on the mirrored towers that had once symbolized humanity's pride. Now they looked more like cages. A voice broke through the static air. "Sergeant John Kellen," said Commander Hayes, her uniform crisp, eyes unreadable. "You survived the quarantine zone. That's remarkable." John gave a faint, hollow smile. "I wasn't alone." Hayes looked at the charred pendant in his palm, the only piece left of Karen. "The alien?" He nodded. "Her name was Karen. She saved my life." "And yours," Hayes frowned. "She was an enemy asset." "You should have neutralized her." John's jaw tightened. "If she were the enemy, we'd all be dead. She sacrificed herself to destroy the hunters, the machines we built and left behind." The room fell silent. Technicians turned from their screens. A few whispered. Hayes crossed her arms. "Sergeant, you're speaking emotionally. You've been through trauma. The aliens manipulated." John slammed the pendant onto the table.
She didn't manipulate me.
"She believed in us, in humanity, more than we do ourselves." His voice echoed through the chamber. For a moment, no one spoke. Hours later, John sat in a debriefing cell, staring at the cold glass wall. His reflection looked like a ghost, eyes hollow, uniform torn, soul somewhere far beyond the stars. He replayed her last words in his mind. "Tell them. We tried to be better." The door hissed open. A young officer stepped inside holding a data pad. "Sergeant, Command wants your report. Full detail, especially about the alien contact." John looked at him. "If I tell you the truth, will anyone believe it?" The officer hesitated. "Truth doesn't matter much here, sir. Only protocol." John's lips curved in a sad smile. "Then maybe it's time we change that." He stood, taking the pad. But instead of dictating the standard military report, he began to speak, not like a soldier, but like a witness. "She wasn't the monster we were told to fear," he said quietly. "She was exiled for mercy, for refusing to obey hate. And when your beacons called death back to her world, she gave her life to stop it." The officer's eyes widened. "Command will delete that. You know that, right?" John nodded. "Then I'll make sure it's heard before they can." That night, under the steel blue lights of the base, John broke every code he had ever sworn to follow. He accessed the central broadcast node, an old forgotten emergency frequency used to reach all colonies simultaneously. He uploaded his recorded message, Karen's final act, her story, and her words. The data carried her image, flickering footage from his helmet cam, showing her standing in the storm, her hand on the beacon's core, saying we can still be better. And then he sent it to every human outpost in the galaxy. The message spread like fire. At first, Command tried to suppress it, calling it propaganda, but the footage was too real, too raw. The colonies saw the truth for themselves, an alien dying to protect humans who once tried to erase her kind. Protests began on Luna Base, then Mars, then Earth. People painted Karen's face on the walls, calling her the alien who believed in humanity. And somewhere amid the chaos, John found a strange peace. He walked through the crowd silently, watching strangers whisper her name as if it were a prayer. Weeks later, he stood alone at the edge of the Atlantic cliffs, holding the pendant. The waves crashed below, endless and wild, like the storms she had loved. He spoke softly to the wind. You said the stars were meant for everyone. Maybe you were right. Behind him, footsteps approached. He turned to see a group of young recruits, explorers preparing for a new mission under a banner that now bore both human and alien symbols entwined. Sir, one of them said, is it true? She really saved you? John smiled faintly. No, she saved us all. They saluted, then boarded their shuttle. The engines roared, lifting them toward the twilight sky. John watched until they vanished beyond the clouds. Then he opened his hand and let the pendant fall into the ocean. Goodbye, Karen, he whispered. Your dawn has come. As the sun rose over the horizon, golden light spilled across the sea and the cities beyond. On every screen in every colony, her face appeared once more. Calm, radiant, eternal. No more servants. No more masters. Only those who choose to protect, not command. The world was changing. Humanity had seen the reflection of its own cruelty and its own hope. And in that light, born from one alien's faith and one human's choice, a new age began. The age they would one day call the dawn of understanding.